capture that agenda. And we did 3 blended sessions with community stakeholders, engaged about 65 total willing participants, again, facilitate conversations on Zoom. So what did we hear? First and foremost, what I heard was that you and your peers value the network today after this adventure since 2015, 2016, as your lead advocate, as the organizer, the group that keeps us connected, the convener, right, that brings us together, and as your communicator, keeping you in the pulse of information, resources, opportunities, urgent issues, things, right, that we need to know to be effective and strong in our work. Collectively, in a very similar way to the thought leaders, the network was absolutely recognized, both internally and externally, as the lead voice, the lead organizer, the champion for arts and culture in the region and its communities, the hub, the source for all of those information resources. And in the sessions, particularly that focused on member voices, you suggested I have a really long list of all of the types of programs and services that you'd like to see either continued and strengthened or added to the mix moving forward. Some of the things that were repeated, I think most often, the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, development, peer group for shared learning and practicing, recognizing that like you don't take a workshop and then you know how to do it, but it's an ongoing, lifelong commitment and practice, and we're going to make mistakes. And so being able to have kind of peer learning and support through that being very important. Unique to this moment, I heard a lot about from organizational leaders really being worried about what they need to do to be able to get audiences back, comfortable being back, interacting, connecting, taking in programming and experiences as they used to, and at the same time, kind of hearing right conversation this morning. Yes, and, right, we've all learned in this time of needing to imagine and experiment with new ways of sharing what we do with our audiences. There's that opportunity as well. And how do we really maximize the best of all of that together? Dialogue on shared issues. I think that in a very similar way to the way I'm feeling the energy and the buzz in the room today with the conversations this morning, continued opportunities for more of that. Being able to do this, once a year is important, but I heard that there's an eagerness, whether it's network organized or it's member, small group organized in different communities, but there's a way of layering in how we work together, how we learn together, how we have dialogue, and these things that either get us really excited to get up in the morning or keep us up at night worrying about how and what we need to do next. Leadership transition, a big one, and that was also one of the things that has really hit me in getting to know all of you and the region more broadly through this process is there is an incredibly high level of emerging new leadership across sectors that seems to be, it's happening everywhere, but it seems to be really uniquely working and operating at a higher level here today. And so I think that what I heard was there's an interest in maximizing and responding to that and nurturing those opportunities collectively. Funding, right, always a big one. That's usually like one of the first things that comes up as a recommendation. Help with building community partnerships, board development, staff development, and so on. And so the big question that I'm very excited to continue to have an opportunity to kind of listen and learn from you is, what truly does this resonate in terms of where you are in the work that you do with your organization or in your own creative artistic practice? Does this align with kind of what you're thinking about in terms of what the network can do for you? So, take a quick pause and take a sip of water and see if there's any thought on that. Any thoughts that come to mind? And hearing none, again, post-its and the chat room would be awesome. The other thing, and Mary mentioned that we have an opportunity today to have planned sessions this afternoon for the summer breakouts that were guided by what we heard through this process. And this kind of theme that really emerged from both the focus groups in particular was the importance of building and cultivating and nurturing deeper, meaningful, intentional connections within our sector and with our broader communities. What I heard was everybody wants to be more connected, sees opportunities, different ways to be more connected. I think that that's not surprising. We've just spent, 2 years being super isolated and disconnected and masked and social distance dancing and doing things in very strange ways for human beings. What I heard was that that's absolutely kind of in the mix here, but I think that it's also a moment where I heard people wanting to imagine not simply going back to being connected the way we used to be, but really thinking about new ways to really deepen those opportunities. We also heard from artists in the conversation that they feel less connected than I think organizational players, particularly within the network community. They see that there's a place for them, but they're not exactly sure exactly how to plug in or how to connect with organizations or opportunities. And we heard, we had in one of the focus groups had a really lively conversation. Organization leaders also shared that, they'd like to do a better job, and they often sit at their desks and aren't quite sure how they can get the word out on a particular opportunity to be artists working within their communities. So there was definitely some shared interest in deepening this. And I think everybody felt the opportunity to have network support, but our kind of collective work together on how we can all do a better job of connecting with our broader communities, both in terms of cultivating audiences and audience growth and having that impact in the work we do, but also how we can reach out into the broader community to be able to build partnerships and to deepen investment and to heighten the priorities for the work that we do within our communities. There was also a really great conversation in one of the focus groups, and it was, I have to credit Amanda Kick from Crosshatch, who commented, and there was like a pause, and then there was like this big why don't we do more of that? That truly, that artists, the artists, the creatives, the talent that we engage across all of our programming are the core and the foundation to building our regional awareness, to why we have, right, such a rich and diverse and just incredible arts and cultural community and scene and ecosystem here. It's, you know, what makes this such an amazing place to live. It's why people want to come and visit here. It's why talent would want to be attracted to be part of building what's really unique here. And how we should think about the opportunities of what can the network, what can we collectively do differently to put a focus on supporting and uplifting our artists, our makers, our designers, our creative practitioners, making that commitment to helping to uplift them as part of uplifting all of us together in the work that we do, and really looking for opportunities to engage artists as lead voices, as leaders, as really kind of core to, it's a core asset, right, in everything that we do. So that was definitely a core learning and that I heard. And we're gonna, immediately after this, in the first breakout rounds, we'll have an opportunity to just kind of dive into this a little more deeply. I'm curious to hear what you think about that. Does that resonate for anybody? Seeing some nodding heads. Any thoughts? It's the lunch lull again. It's the worst position to be in, right? That too.
So I wonder always about capacity. So what is, and I know this is the process, but what is the focus of the network going to be? Because just even in these slides, it seems like you're shooting off a lot right there. So.
Exactly, and that goes back to the next and very critical step that the network leadership, informed by what it's hearing from you, needs to do in honing what are those 1, 2, maybe 3 core priorities. What are those unique roles that are distinguished from what others are doing, that it can invest in and build capacity around, that will have the greatest impact of moving the needle, right? And being able to phase that plan so that that then gets others excited to be a part of it, to invest in it, to then grow capacity, to then add more to the plate. So I think that, and I'll say this in my own work that I do with my own arts nonprofit, it is always there's always something bright and shiny. Somebody comes up with the greatest idea and it's like, oh, I have a golden retriever. Yeah, why wouldn't I want to do that? I think that we are just, because of our passion for the power of creativity and sharing cultural experiences, I think we are most guilty when I think about other stuff. It's really hard not to want to do it all. And I think that for the network, and I'm gonna kind of hone it into the network, it's most important for the network to be really focusing its core work to what you most need them to do to help you grow and thrive. And so, is that the advocacy? And when I say advocacy, it's kind of like big A, the legislators, state, federal, local. Is it also part of advocacy, kind of little a, of being able to relentlessly be keeping that conversation with the broader community about why this is important, why it matters here, why it needs to matter to you so much that you want to be a part of making sure that it never goes away, that it always thrives and is prospering here. So we're at this moment of still listening, and Mary's doing this. We don't have the complete answer to that yet. Okay, so today I'm reporting out on what I've heard. I have kind of ideas of what I think is most important. We want to still hear from you, and we have yet kind of one more stage of listening that's going to be taking place, and that'll be another opportunity for you.
Yes, another
Yep.
question.
Yeah, please.
In regards to the last slide that you had about artist priority, deepening connections, collaborative connections with peers, my mind always goes to collaborative connections projects, like what can we do with different organizations? But then thinking about your question, and that's a big chunk, to bite off. I go back to Rotary Foundation 5-6 years ago, started these fundraising cohorts. They chose certain organizations, fund development professionals, and then they worked with them for 8 weeks, and you learned best practices. As an arts administrator, I feel like to support and make an artist a priority, I would like from the network, in terms of collaborative connection, working with my peers on best practices on how to support artists, maybe professional development on how to manage these things, because a lot of people, I'm not going to name, but I do have partnerships that we didn't come from an art background, but we're in this leadership role, and I would love to strengthen our organizational processes so we can support and make artists a priority, but we're doing it the right way instead of, yeah, I think this works. Not saying that we do it, but it would be nice to have that professional education of best practices available.
Thank you, and I think that is absolutely falls into that call for that kind of shared peer learning and best practice development. It's crazy for us to think that we all have to kind of go back to our separate corners and figure this all out alone. Like we're in this together, so let's do it together, let's do it smartly. So we definitely want to make note of that for moving forward. Any last lingering? Sarah, come to our session at 1:15. Yeah.
In the focus group I was in, one of the themes that emerged was a lot of small arts organizations doing interesting work kind of out of public sight. And was that maybe I missed it in your presentation here, but it seemed like everyone was kind of echoing that. I didn't know you did that. I didn't know this went on.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that speaks to the interest in deepening connections with each other. Definitely heard a lot from all of you that participated, that it's hard across 10 county region to know what everybody's doing in their own corner, right, of community. And so the opportunity is to have that kind of sharing and communication, which the network has been doing. We never do enough of that, right? There's always an opportunity to do more of that. That also ties in with kind of the next kind of core learning that we heard, was going back to the importance of, as a next step, sharpening the narrative, right? The core story of who is the network, what do they do, how do they serve you, how do we together as a network, why are we important here in the region, to the vitality of the region, sharpening that core messaging. And the one focus group in particular, and I can't remember if it was the one that you were part of, there was just a wild amount of enthusiasm and wanting to sign up and volunteer to think about, how do we showcase and communicate, shout to the world, all of the various things that are happening. And I would say that thought leaders absolutely talked about, Interlochen is amazing, and we've got the dentist, we have all these things, but we have also, small grassroots organizations that are, all over the region that are doing amazing things. We have traditional, offerings, we have kind of cutting edge, new ways of engaging audiences in thought-provoking performances, theater, music offerings, experiences in unique kinds of places where we don't normally think that we're going to have an artistic experience. And so the opportunity to think collectively, and I know this is something that Mary has been and the network board have been beginning to think about what could move forward with your involvement and interest, of course, is how could we smartly organize that kind of a showcase, like an annual opportunity for not new programming necessarily, right, to be developed, but how could we just be really smart about like branding and promoting like a month or a week where we're showcasing all the things that you are doing, and maybe with more time to plan, but there's an opportunity to move that into some kind of coordinated themes, over time that could be woven across programming in the region. And I think that that's something that I heard from community leaders that they were interested in. They love everything that's happening here, but they would love to see us be more cohesive and coordinated, and I think united and unified in our messaging and the story that we tell it uniquely in our own place. But at the end of the day, like the why it matters here, that's a really short, concise story that we should all really get a message together, and the power of that collectively being really, really important. So Mary's giving me the high sign. I think, just kind of summarizing, everybody that I talk to sees this as vitally important to the region, to their communities, to their kids in schools, how we connect as people. The network is seen absolutely as a leader to make it happen with you. And I think that the wealth of work that you have been doing here together collectively, you've already set a perfect stage to open and write this next chapter. So really quickly, we're not done listening yet. The last stage of this phase of our work together will involve 2 online surveys. And this is where you come in 2 ways. The first survey is going to be specifically tailored to do more intensive listening with you, the arts, culture, and creative sector. Listening again, what you need, where you are, what you see as opportunities. And so Mary will be sharing that out. We want you to take it, we want you to widely share it, right, with people that are in that community, in your areas, in your networks. And then the second survey is going to be more tailored to reach out to the broader community. Again, you can help us get the word out on this. So that we have kind of in this moment, as we're sitting here post-pandemic, right, recovery stepping forward, to understand community interests, participation levels, and how does the community value arts and culture within the region. So if Mary is still breathing and she's wiggling her arms, we're tentatively launching these surveys by Friday, and they'll be open to May 27th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day. And we will be absolutely depending on you to help us get the word out, spread it widely. So bringing it home, this project is wrapping up by the end of June. We have the survey happening, more conversation this afternoon. Mary is also finding opportunities for some short-term work groups that potentially could be brought together perhaps around messaging as an example, or this collaborative showcasing opportunity. I'll be kind of reporting out, and I know that Mary will be making the report recommendations available to you as well. So, you know, as much as this feels like we're wrapping up kind of a report by the end of June for the grant deadline, this very much is like the start of an ongoing conversation. Like, listening continues, and chiseling the work forward together matters. So, encouraging you to think about how you're going to be in the midst of it and be part of moving this forward. So, I've been delighted to be here and excited to be in conversation with you this afternoon, and I'll stop talking and Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, Amy, I would love to keep this going for another hour. We probably should have made it another breakout session. However, the next breakout session does start at 1:15, and since we have as many people online as there are in this room right now, they're logging in at 1:15. So I would invite you to maybe run around for a minute, just get the blood flowing, and we will be doing the DEI Deep Dive 2.0 will be right here in this room. In 106, we'll be making the hard decisions with Lisa Rachel, who's going to be coming in by Zoom, and I'll be facilitating, so I'll be a live contact. And then in room C, Mary and Jennifer will be continuing this conversation about artists, connecting artists together, kind of a build up on the same discussion. At 2:10, that first section will end as close to 2 o'clock if possible. And then at 2:10, the next session will begin again online. You can link to the link you were provided. In this room, fundraising roundtable in 106 will be building community champions, and in 107 will be celebrating native art, artists, and culture. So, thank you.